Hello dear students, I am Dr. Anshika Srivastava. I have completed my MBBS from KGMU in the year 2025. Today we will be discussing formation and fate of ammonia. It is a very important topic for first of biochemistry exams. So let us begin. The molecule drawn here is that of ammonia. Ammonia is equals to NH3. This blue structure is the nitrogen atom and the rest are hydrogen atoms. Now let us discuss how is ammonia formed in the human body. The dominant source of ammonia in human body is amino acid deamination. Now amino acids are composed of one NH2 group and one COOH group. We have studied in 12th biochemistry that acid group is COOH, and when an ammonia group is also added, it forms amino acid. Now if this group is removed, it forms ammonia. Other sources may include gut bacteria as well as purine and other nitrogenous compound metabolism. Now, why do we need to remove ammonia from the human body? Ammonia is a highly toxic compound. It can cross blood-brain barrier and cause encephalopathy. Hence, body promptly removes ammonia. This is achieved by converting ammonia to urea. Now, urea is a water-soluble compound which is excreted in urine. Now, how does this conversion takes place? It takes place by urea cycle. This is the structure of urea. Its formula is NH2 C double bond O NH2. The first nitrogen in urea is contributed by ammonia, the compound which we are trying to remove. The second nitrogen is contributed by aspartate. This aspartate is derived from fumarate, and the source of this fumarate is the TCA cycle. Hence, the TCA cycle and the urea cycle are interconnected. And the carbon atom, this carbon atom is contributed by respiratory CO2. This cycle takes place exclusively in the liver. Now let us discuss the cycle in brief. First of all, CO2, the respiratory CO2, and ammonia which we are trying to remove. They are combined together to form carbamoyl phosphate. The source of this the rate limiting reaction is carbamoyl phosphate synthetase 1. Be very careful, it is CPS1, it is not CPS2. This might be tested in your MCQ part of the question paper. This reaction also needs an obligate allosteric activator called as N-acetyl glutamate as well as ATP. 2 ATP are consumed and converted into 2 ADP. In the presence of ornithine transcarbamylase, ornithine combines with carbamoyl phosphate to form citrulline. Citrulline transporter sends citrulline from mitochondria. Be very careful students, urea cycle takes place in two parts, both the mitochondria and the cytoplasm. So, this citrulline is transported from mitochondria outside into the cytoplasm. Also, the aspartate, which was derived from fumarate from TCA cycle, which also occurs inside the mitochondria, is transported outside. And citrulline combines with aspartate. Aspartate and citrulline combine together in the form of aspartate synthetase to form arginosuccinate. Arginosuccinate is converted to arginine. Arginine is converted to ornithine and urea is released. This ornithine is again shuttled into the urea cycle by the help of ornithine transporter. So this is the urea cycle. It is very important topic for your profs. Do revise it again and again and try to learn the cycle. Also, now we will briefly discuss about the urea cycle defects. If there is the defect in the very first step of the urea cycle, that is, there is absence of the rate limiting enzyme, then it is called as hyperammonemia. This is because now ammonia will not be consumed and hence there will be an increased amount of ammonia. This is hyperammonemia type 2. Whereas if there is defect in ornithine transcarbamylase, it will result in hyperammonemia type 2. It is the most common urea cycle defect and it is an X-linked recessive disorder. In this disorder, now carbamoyl phosphate is accumulated. This carbamoyl phosphate cannot be converted to citrulline. So, this carbamoyl phosphate is now shunted to pyrimidine synthesis. Hence, large amount of pyrimidine is excreted in urine. Also, it may be converted to orotic acid, resulting in orotic aciduria. If there is deficiency of arginosuccinate synthetase, then it can result in increased amount of citrulline because this is the precursor. This may result in hypercitrulinemia. But if there is deficiency of arginosuccinate lyase, arginosuccinate cannot be broken down to arginine and there is accumulation of arginosuccinic acid. This is excreted into urine, resulting in arginosuccinic aciduria. Arginosuccinic aciduria. Alright. This defect is characterized by this form of hair called as trichorexis nodosa. If the defect is in the next step, that is arginase is absent, urea will not be formed and there will be accumulation of arginine. In the deficiency of arginase, there will be hyperargininemia. Hyperargininemia. It is characterized by spastic diplegia as well as scissoring gait. These are two characteristic findings which you must learn. Next, if there is the defect of ornithine transporter. Now, ornithine will not be transported from cytoplasm to mitochondria. Hence, ornithine cannot be consumed. Ornithine consumption decreased or absent. So, ornithine will be accumulated, resulting in the first H called as hyperornithemia. Ornithemia. Now, there will be an excess of carbamoyl phosphate. This is not because OTC is absent, but it is because there is no ornithine to combine with carbamoyl phosphate to form citrulline. Now, this excess carbamoyl phosphate will combine with lysine and will form homocitrulline. This will result in second H, that is homocitrullinemia. Now, we have a basic knowledge that if there is a large amount of product accumulated, the cycle stops moving forward. Hence, even NH3 will be accumulated, resulting in hyperammonemia. So, the deficiency of ornithine transporter results in HHH syndrome. Also, in some rare cases, there may be deficiency of citrulline transporter. Now, what are the presentations if a person is suffering from any of the urea cycle disorders other than these characteristic findings? These are general findings of encephalopathy, respiratory alkalosis, tachypnea or fast breathing, and hyperammonemia. How do we diagnose a urea cycle disorder? It is by tandem mass spectrometry. It is the gold standard technique for all of the metabolic disorders, including urea cycle disorders as well as other disorders like phenylketonuria, etc. Now, how do we treat this disorder? It is by supplementing arginine, except in case of arginase deficiency. In all cases, we can supplement arginine. This is because arginine is a source of ornithine. Except in the case where there is arginase deficiency, if there is no arginase, this arginine will by default accumulate itself. But in other cases, arginine will supply ornithine, and as we know, the large amount of precursor pushes the reaction forward. So even if there is very decreased activity of OTC, if we have a large amount of ornithine, it may combine with some carbamoyl phosphate and push the cycle forward. So that is the rationale behind using arginine. Also, we may use acylation therapies in which two compounds, phenyl butyrate and sodium benzoate, both of which are ammonia scavengers, may be used. Phenyl butyrate is a product. In the body, it is converted to phenyl acetate. This phenyl acetate converts with glutamine. Why glutamine? Because glutamine can be converted to glutamate plus ammonia. Hence, glutamine is the source of ammonia in a carrier form. Alright, so phenyl acetate combines with glutamine and forms phenyl acetyl glutamine. This can be excreted through the kidney. Hence, large amounts of ammonia will be excreted outside once again. In a similar fashion, sodium benzoate will combine with glycine in the presence of glycine synthase. Glycine synthase is an enzyme catalyzing this reaction. and it will form benzoyl glycine, which is again excreted through kidneys. So this is all about the formation of ammonia and the fate of ammonia. Formation of ammonia is through the deamination of amino acids, which are the structural units of proteins, as well as gut bacteria and metabolism of other nitrogenous compounds. Then predominant fate of ammonia is by conversion to urea. We also discussed in brief various urea cycle disorders, how to diagnose the urea cycle disorders, what are the clinical features of urea cycle disorders, as well as the treatment. Please revise this video again and again because it is a very volatile topic and it is at the same time very important for the exams. At the end, I would like to say, stick to the plan. At this moment, you would be feeling very jittery, very nervous, but hard things always take a lot of efforts. Don't give up and you will definitely succeed. Thank you.